on, guys, look. It's not like I'm the biggest Spider-Man fan ever. There's got to be bigger Spider-Man fans than me out there.
I mean, I guess I have bought basically every action figure of the webhead ever produced. And yeah, sure, I mean, I do have a complete run of the comics. And maybe I went to the premiere of the first Spidey movie dressed like this. And that might also be a custom t-shirt that I made for my pregnant wife that says Spider Mom and Spider Baby.
Oh my gosh, maybe I am the biggest Spider-Man fan of all time. Hey guys, welcome back to Carbon Scoring, your home for action figures and comic history. It seems like everywhere I go, I'm surrounded by Spider-Man.
In my office, I've got Spideys on my desk, Spideys on my windowsill, I got Mego Spideys, I got MCU Spideys. Let's face it, I got a pretty cool office.
But the heart of my collection is right here, my hand-picked display of the greatest Spider-Man action figures of all time. We're going to go shelf by shelf through this, and if you've seen some of my other Spidey videos, no worries. I've changed things up and even added brand new displays.
And if you're enjoying our combination of action figures and comic history, give us a like and hit subscribe. Plus, it takes a ton of different display stands to create the shelves that you see before you, so I have links to everything I use in this video down in the description.
So face front, true believers, it's web swinging time.
Let's start with the top shelf, which is a hodgepodge of oversized figures from a variety of companies, as well as a few super stylized guys that just don't fit anywhere else in my display. Right up front are the Medicom 12-inch Spideys from their Real Action Heroes line. Despite being released in 2004 and 2005, these remain the best comic-accurate versions of Spidey in this scale. Joining them is the new Spider-Man 2099 from Sideshow. That super shiny suit and metallic paint capture the future Spidey perfectly. Before Funko Pops, there were Mighty Mugs. These super deformed 6-inch figures were super cute. The Peter Parker was a 2008 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, limited to 3,000 pieces. Hasbro tried to bring the line back in 2018 with an action feature that lets you change the faces, but they just couldn't recapture the cuteness of the originals. But I do have room for one pop, the Bombastic Bagman from Ron Frenz' criminally underrated run on Amazing Spider-Man. After Reed Richards captured the Venom symbiote, leaving Spidey in his undies, the Human Torch hooked him up with an old FF suit and a paper bag for a mask. Kick me sign not included. Moving on to 8-inch figures, here are reproductions of Mego's original Circle Suit Spidey and a Secret Identity Peter Parker. I do have an original Circle Suit, which I display with my other Megos, but that Secret Identity costume remains the holiest of holy grails. Next is this insane 1970s Japanese Spidey based off their Gonzo adaptation. It has a retractable webline feature and a web-blasting hand. Here's the old and the new in 12-inch Marvel Legends. The red and blue was one of the final Toy Biz figures in 2006, and I have the alternate Peter head on display here, while the black suit is Hasbro's version from 2016. My Tom Holland Spideys are on display with my other MCU Hot Toys. But here are 12-inch figures from the first two Spidey movie series. Sam Raimi's movies brought Spider-Man to the mainstream. Then poor Andrew Garfield got stuck with this. Hey, if 8 inches is good, 12 inches has to be better, right? Mego thought so as they introduced foot-tall versions of Spidey and his friends towards the end of their World's Greatest Superheroes line in the late 1970s. Here's one of my favorite figures in my collection. This 14-inch vinyl monster came out in 1991, 30 years ago, as Toy Biz had just obtained the Marvel license. What it lacks in articulation, it more than makes up for in Bronze Age styling, like it just came off of John Romita's drawing table. And finally, the Remco Energized Spider-Man. This was every kid's dream in 1978, and how could it not be?
It's Energized Spider-Man, battery not included. Attach the spider clamp, flip the switch, and the motorized web climber starts him climbing, keeps him climbing. Energized Spider-Man.
Never had it as a kid, but thanks to the magic of eBay, he's mine now. I love this shelf so much. One of the reasons is that this is basically the history of Spider-Man action figures, from the mid-1970s until Marvel Legends in 2002. Mego, Secret Wars, early Toy Biz, all on this shelf. But I really love this display because these are the toys that came from the time in my life where every figure I got was sacred. I wasn't pre-ordering full sets off the internet back then. These were childhood gifts or figures from toy hunting with my buddies in the 90s when that was the least cool thing to do. This was when I had to make tough decisions on if I could afford $5 for another Spidey figure. Each of these action figures tell a story, so let me share a few. I've always had a soft spot for Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham, so he gets one corner to himself. The other corner is for Pete's main girlfriends, Gwen and MJ. And of course Miss Lion, who, fun fact, is still a boy. This 1978 figure from Mego weighs approximately 800 pounds, cause it's all die-cast metal. Spidey hadn't been on toy shelves since 1984, when Toy Biz released their first Marvel figures in 1990. The suction cup hands and barrel chest weren't ideal, but they quickly made up for it with figures like these early superposable models. But where Toy Biz really shined was the period after the end of the 90s animated series. No longer tied down to the cartoon look, they experimented with more comic-accurate sculpts and developed some of their best Spideys. None more so than this one, my lil Spidey. This was the guy that was in my pocket on my wedding day, and he will always be the epicenter of my entire collection. Toy Biz produced a spectacular, sensational, amazing line of 5-inch action figures based off the hit Spider-Man animated series, which ran from 1994 to 1998. As the line went on, they moved from the cartoon designs to more comic-accurate ones. In fact, I think you can make a pretty valid argument that while there have been bigger versions of some of these characters, several of them have never been done better. This lizard figure looks like he stepped off Todd McFarlane's cover to Amazing Spider-Man 313. Sandman has the right balance of action and Steve Ditko hairstyling, while the Vulture really captures that hunched over old man vibe with the liver spots on his forehead. And I know we just got a terrific JJ in the retro line, but this one really captures his blowhard dynamic with the sense of movement from his open tie and billowing vest to that mouth caught right in the middle of barking orders. Where the Toy Biz 5-inch line truly excelled was in giving us figures that over 20 years later we still haven't seen in 6-inch form. Madam Web has become a vital part of the Spidey mythos by playing a pivotal role in the Spider-Verse. It's a shame that Molten Man, a villain created by Steve Ditko, has only ever come as a Toy Fair magazine mail-away exclusive from 1994. I doubt we're ever going to see another version of Marvel's Scarecrow, not if DC's lawyers have anything to say about it. And while this Spider Slayer is very cartoon accurate, who doesn't want to see this version gracing our shelves? Finally comes Swarm. Toy Biz made a figure made of a bazillion bees. If I could only get one more Spidey villain made, this would be it. My collection of 6-inch Spider-Man figures is probably my favorite display in the entire Secret Lounge. Each figure is in a certain spot for a specific reason, and I've tried to represent all of the eras of Spidey's comic history, from the earliest Steve Ditko days to the Bronze Age of Romita, Kane, and Andrew, and on to the 90s resurgence thanks to Todd McFarlane. There are even more modern versions from J. Scott Campbell and figures representing Dan Slott's lengthy run on the title. Along the back wall are those 4 perfect versions of Spider-Man: Black Suit, Classic Red and Blue, Ben Reilly, and Scarlet Spider. I've done an entire video going figure by figure through this display, and you can check it out at the link above. In that video, I go through the comic history and historical relevance of each different version. But for now, let's just sit back and gaze at plastic perfection. Can't let Spidey have all the fun, not when he has the best rogues gallery in comics. Most of these figures are recent additions, as Hasbro continues to produce iconic versions of character after character. But there are still some holdouts from the old Toy Biz days, mainly because I think those better represent Steve Ditko's designs, and you know I'm always going to pick Ditko. Perhaps the 2 best examples are the Lizard and the Vulture from the 2005 Fearsome Foes box set. They still haven't been topped. But they haven't made all the Ditko villains that I want, so I had to resort to customs of the Enforcers and the Big Man, as well as the Crime Master, whose death at the hands of the police in issue 27 was one of the first examples of Ditko's belief in objectivism creeping into his work. And I may be struck down for saying this, but one Ditko creation that was drawn better by someone else was the Green Goblin, shown here as he looked from the pen of John Romita Sr. And next to him, the Hobgoblin, perfectly capturing the art of John Romita Jr. Old Hobby here was the villain in the very first issue of Spider-Man I ever read, issue 250 from November of 1983. And you wonder why I'm a lifelong Spider-Man fan. While the A-list villains are the tops, it's the C and D-list ones that make Spidey so fun, and we have been blessed with so many figures from the fringes of the Spider-Verse. 3 of my faves are Prowler, Shocker, and Puma. Even Spidey asked him if he was named after the second-rate sneakers when they first met. Here's J. Jonah Jameson's son John as Man-Wolf. Everybody's favorite mercenaries, Paladin and Silver Sable. We even have figures of White Rabbit and Frogman. Nuff said. But I've still had to supplement my collection with customs, including Madam Web, Black Tarantula, and the physician-turned-anti-hero, Cardiac. In a world where we have a Demogoblin figure this good, I can't wait to see what's next. Spider-Man has a rich history in animation. From the original 67 cartoon with its unforgettable theme song, to the Amazing Friends of the 80s, and the long-running animated series of the 90s, which produced by far the most action figures. But Spidey didn't stop then, and this shelf is dedicated to the more modern tunes produced in the 2000s. There's some pretty cool stuff here. Let's take a look. In 2003, Spider-Man the New Animated Series spun directly out of the first movie, and because it was on MTV, yes, MTV, it was able to have a darker and more violent tone. The 3D animation was actually pretty cool for the time, and the voice cast was excellent with Doogie Howser as Pete and my 90s crush Lisa Loeb as MJ. But it was cancelled after one season, and the toys suffered a similar fate, with only Spidey and this pretty cool lizard figure being produced. The greatest success for animated Spidey has to be Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, you know, other than being damn near perfect in characterization and tone, revolutionizing the look of animation, as well as bringing home $400 million at the box office, it was okay, I guess. And the figures we've gotten have been just as good. I bought all those expensive Mafex imports, but I actually prefer Hasbro's Marvel Legends offerings. I can't wait to see what's next for Miles and Friends in the Spider-Verse, both on screen and in the toy aisles. But my hands down favorite Spidey cartoon is the spectacular Spider-Man. You'll hear me say Steve Ditko's name a lot in these videos, because Spidey's co-creator developed an artistic palette and language for the wall crawler that has never been topped. Everyone who has come after has just been building on Ditko's foundation, and this cartoon did it the best. Nowhere was this more evident than when they captured the pinnacle moment in Ditko's comic Spidey run in this unbelievable sequence lifted from Amazing Spider-Man issue 33. Everything about Spider-Man can be boiled down to this one scene. His underdog nature, his self-doubt, his motivation to always do the right thing, and finally, his ability to overcome any odds and find the inner strength to succeed. I just get chills watching Ditko's vision come to life so perfectly. It's not always easy to capture the animated style in 3D form, but Hasbro was up to the challenge. These figures, released in 2008 and 2009, were during a time when Marvel Legends were dying on the vine, but we got an amazing assortment of villains to go along with multiple versions of the wall crawler. Marvel's merger with Disney killed this cartoon, as well as the associated toy line right as it was coming to its peak. I'm not sure I can ever forgive them for prematurely ending the greatest Spider-Man cartoon ever made. So we know Spidey's been a hit in animation, but what about live action? While we still desperately need a figure of Nicholas Hammond from the Spidey TV movies of the 70s, we've done pretty well for ourselves with figures from the webhead's forays into film. If you've watched my other videos, you know how much I love Japan's take on the wall crawler with his giant robot Leopardon. But since that figure made my top 10 Spideys of all time, Bandai has produced a new 6-inch version of Japanese Spidey in their SH Figuarts line. As you can clearly see, it is awesome. But back home, everything changed with the release of the first Spider-Man movie in 2002. It is hard to describe what a sensation it was. Every showing was sold out, and it became the first movie to make $100 million in its opening weekend. Toy Biz crushed it with their line of figures from the film. Remember, these were made long before facial recognition changed the accuracy of action figures. 20 years later, these still stand up as some of the finest Spidey figures ever. But let's bring on the bad guys, and Toy Biz and Hasbro have certainly done that, with 6-inch figures representing every Spidey film made, and even 3 Build-A-Figures with Sandman, I guess we're calling him Molten Man, and the Vulture's wings. We've also gotten all the various Spidey costumes depicted in the films, with my personal favorite being the Mafex figure from Spider-Man Homecoming. As all of you know, a collection is a constantly evolving thing, and I don't see them stopping making Spider-Man figures anytime soon. In fact, each new release is better than the last. So while we've come to the end of this Spidey celebration, you can be certain that there will be more to come. Hey, you've made it this far. Go ahead and subscribe so that you can keep up with all the fun that's about to come from Carbon Scoring.